Bowden Blitz ACC edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year Terry Bowden. Coach, in week number 4, we saw another week of upsets within the ACC. We look at the current updated odds entering week number 5, and it's the Miami Hurricanes right now, Coach, and everybody else. Give me your thoughts about the current updated odds for week number 5 within the ACC.
Well, I think you hit it right. I mean, with Miami is rising above. Although I will say this: if you watch that game closely, it was 13-7 in the fourth quarter, a little bit closer than what the final score indicates. But Miami's still looking like the most complete team in the conference. And now that you pretty much exclude Clemson from those top 4 teams, now you're talking about Georgia Tech, their best start since 2014, FSU. And Louisville, I guess, the top 4 on odds with Miami. Everybody's planning to play catch-up right now with Miami.
Now, when you're in Miami and you're plus 115, you have to stay the course. Last year, they were in perfect position to potentially make a college football playoff berth, and they lost to Syracuse and Georgia Tech down the stretch. For Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes moving forward, what do you talk about from the motivation aspect and the focus aspect so that this team potentially can go on an undefeated run?
Well, I think you just kind of remind them what happened last year. Had the best quarterback in the country. Everybody was talking about the resurgence of Miami, and they didn't even make the playoffs or the ACC championship. And I think you don't have to look back too far. I know there's new players on the team, but they talk to each other. They understand that. And I think you see a little different Miami team. You see a team against Florida, and Florida played a heck of a defensive ball game against them last week. That they stopped on a 4th and 3 in the fourth quarter, and then drove the length of the field to put the game away. That's not kind of the way we saw it last year. It was always Cam Ward this, Cam Ward that. So tell them to stay focused. Do what you've been doing. You're not the same type of team you were last year.
Now, Carson Beck, the Heisman Trophy frontrunner at the start of the week, completed 17 of 30 passes, 160 yards and a touchdown. Miami rush coach for 4 yards per carry, 184 yards on the ground, and I think that was the difference to grind out that 19-point victory. They covered as a 7.5-point favorite in that matchup, but more impressively, I think, was the defensive effort. They held Florida to a total of only 141 total yards in the game, 61 yards on the ground, and held DJ Lagway in the Florida Gator offense to 0 for 13 on third down conversions. It was the defense that really closed the door last Saturday night.
Yeah, and that's what you've got to have to be a championship team. When you talk about all these teams and you see the flash of the offense, or a quarterback that's got pretty numbers or looks like an NFL guy, if you want to start talking about championship caliber, whether it be conference or playoffs, you better look at the other side of the ball. And that's what I'm seeing out of Miami, a defense that sets the tempo, that controls the other team, because that's what they had to have. Because, Florida had a good defense, and they're going to play some teams down the road that have good defenses. And when you don't score a lot of points, when you can't always outscore people. And again, this game 13-7 in the fourth quarter, you better play great defense. And right now, I think that's what makes Miami a team that really does have a chance to go far into the playoffs.
Do you think Miami now, seeing them grind out yet another victory on the defensive side of the ball, where Carson Beck potentially wasn't at his best, from a defensive perspective, is Miami as good as some of the top teams in the nation?
Yeah, I think that I do. I think they've beaten some pretty good teams. I mean, Florida and South Florida and Notre Dame. They don't have like 4 cupcakes and 1 tough team on their schedule. They played a little better schedule, and their defense to me has just gotten better and better. I think they've loaded it through the NIL and portal transfers. They've loaded their defense with strong NFL quality talent, well coached by their defensive coordinator. And, I think they can match other people now. As far as a team that has the talent level to go to the playoffs or go to the conference championship, I think that's clear to me. On both sides of the ball, they've got the talent level. I think of a team that's a championship-type team, great defense, can run the football, and a veteran quarterback that can be poised and manage the offense.
And we'll see if they could do that. They do have a rivalry game upcoming in the month of October with the Florida State Seminoles. Florida State rolled again. They're undefeated heading into week number 5 as well. For Clemson, in week number 3, they lost to Georgia Tech 24-21 on the last-second field goal. Coach and I had broken it down. What were the odds that the Clemson Tigers would start yet again slow as a 16.5-point home favorite in Death Valley over Fran Brown and Syracuse? Coach, they trailed 24-14 at the half. They couldn't get it going, and they lose that game, Coach, in dominating fashion, 34-21. They're 1-3 overall. Cade Klubnik stepped up with a solid performance, but that defense has yet to step up. What is the situation going on in Clemson, and can Dabo right the ship the rest of the way?
Well, Joe, I think that is the question now. It's no longer are they going to be the team everybody thought they were going to be. That's out. Can he hold it back? Can he keep it from collapsing? Can he finish off strong? Can he have a winning season? Can he get to a bowl? Can he not see there what happened at Florida State last year? I think that's what the concern is now. It's more about his reputation and his credibility. Now, I've been around him. I've worked with him, and I think he's got a lot together, and his own pride will be the biggest thing that pushes him. But if there were 2 games where I said there's no way, they're going to lose, this game against Syracuse and the spread, and Tulane game against Ole Miss and the spread, those were 2 that I thought that's just too much. Even if Clemson doesn't play good, they're going to win the game by a little bit, by something. They were down 10-0. Let's say this Fran Brown, the head coach at Syracuse, what's he do? He kicks an onside kick in the first quarter. He goes for it on 4th and 3. He sets the tone of a team that's going to find a way to win. The tackling I saw in Clemson, giving up the big pass plays I saw in Clemson. There's a team right now that's playing on their heels without confidence. I didn't think I would see that at Clemson in the last few years, but I'm seeing it now.
Klubnik throws for 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. It was in a come-from-behind effort the rest of the way. He did toss 60 attempts in that game, Coach. So you just talk about Clemson being taken out of their game plan. Credit Fran Brown and that defensive effort. Now, this was a bittersweet win for Syracuse because their starting quarterback, Steve Angeli, throws for 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but suffers a season-ending Achilles tendon tear. He just had surgery. They're going to have to go to the backup the rest of the way. For Fran Brown and Syracuse, can this team maintain the momentum with a backup quarterback?
The backup, Ricky Collins, came in and did a pretty good job, threw a touchdown pass. And, all I would say is this. Last year was it Kyle McCord, the quarterback, was the leading passer in the nation. And then this quarterback, Steve Angeli, comes along. He's leading the conference in passing again. There's something about the coaches and the system that they run that makes every quarterback, that makes them successful at what they're doing. Now, whether we can see that out of Ricky Collins, I don't know. That would be 3 in a row. But I have this sneaky suspicion that those coaches know what they're doing offensively by scheme. And if this quarterback's even close, he can keep them going. But that definitely makes me watch and wonder about Syracuse down the road.
Syracuse averaged 4.2 yards per carry in the road win over Clemson. And when we talk about the dominance of Clemson just throughout the decade, from 2015 to 2024, the Tigers were 70-3 straight up at home. Over the past year and a half, they have dropped 4 home games. Their record now stands at 70-7, dating back to 2015 in Death Valley. When Coach and I return, we'll talk about some of the other games that took place in week number 4, including the blowout win, UCF over North Carolina, coming up next. Back on the Bowden Blitz, Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden breaking down week 4 within the ACC. Left off talking about the situation in Clemson. Right now, 1-3 entering week number 5. Can Dabo turn it around? Another question mark is in Chapel Hill. Bill Belichick and North Carolina walked into Orlando to face Scott Frost and UCF. They were 6.5-point underdogs in that matchup, Coach. They were never in this game from the start. They get blown out 34-9. They gave up over 500 yards of total offense. Taven Jackson, the UCF quarterback, broke out with a huge performance. This offense for North Carolina looks inconsistent, but bigger question mark is that defense, led by one of the best in the game, Bill Belichick, doesn't seem to have the answers in Chapel Hill.
That's the concern. I don't think North Carolina's getting better. I think they're getting worse. And if the best NFL coordinator that the NFL had and his sons don't have any answers, and look at the second half when they were getting beat. They gave up 3 drives, a 13-play drive, a 14-play drive, and an 18-play drive for touchdowns in the second half. They had no answer. I think when they beat Charlotte and they beat Richmond, there was this, maybe we're getting there. They're not getting there. They were just playing lesser people. They will play tougher people than UCF, but UCF exposed the fact that they got a whole lot of problems that's going to take more than just this season to solve at North Carolina.
And Scott Frost did a fantastic job in his first tenure there with UCF. Wide open offense, didn't work out during his days in Lincoln, going back to his alma mater at Nebraska, comes back home. They're 3-0 entering week number 4. But the bigger question, and we saw news this week of Mike Gundy just being released by Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy, one of the longest tenured head coaches in all of FBS, spent, I believe, 38 of his 54 years at Oklahoma State, whether it be a player, a graduate assistant. What does that mean for the current landscape of coaches? And we relate it to Clemson and Dabo Swinney. I mean, we talk about the dominance within the ACC. Dabo now is starting to ask and be asked questions about the program sitting at 1-3. What does it mean when you see a coach like Mike Gundy get released this week?
Well, it does make you think. It made me think because knowing the situation at Clemson and having been involved with that program, it is a perfect marriage. There is a relationship between Clemson and Dabo that fits together. Just the culture, the agreement they have, the relationship, what he's done for that program. It just seems like there's nothing. It's kind of like a good, strong marriage where they're mad at each other for a while, but they keep on going and it keeps on continuing. But when you see a guy like Gundy, after all the success he's brought that program, and them firing him in the middle of the season, it does make you think, you know what? Anything can happen. I think Gundy's probably 1 year ahead. If Dabo were to have a disastrous situation, I don't think that he will when it comes about losing the program. He's still 1 year past. Gundy did not win a single conference game last year. He renegotiated his contract in the offseason almost as if he knew something was going to happen because part of the new agreement is that he's going to help them find a new head coach. It's almost like, hey, I agree. We may have to get rid of me if I can't turn around. Let's go ahead and agree to it. Dabo's not there, and I don't think Dabo. He is. This is killing Dabo. He has so much pride, and he wants to do so much at that program. So I think right now, it's important for Dabo I don't think there's any question anything's going to happen this year, no matter what at Clemson. Not going to happen. Dabo hopefully can get this thing turned back around because if it were to tank the rest of the season at Clemson, now you really got a tough offseason and which direction the program's going. But right now, I think he's got plenty of time to keep this program from falling off the cliff and getting back into a bowl contention and having a mediocre but a winning season.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think when you look at Mike Gundy, to your point, they made it to 2 Big 12 championships over the past 5 years. Ever since Jim Knowles left, the defense regressed, even with Derek Mason, the former Vanderbilt head coach. It just never turned it around, and they were still searching for answers. And then you lose every conference game last year. You didn't have an offense or a defensive identity. And then this year they come out and they lose to Oregon, a top-ranked team, by basically 50-plus points, and then come back home to a team in Tulsa that you dominated for 10 straight years and you lose the game outright. So that's the difference, I think, when we look at Gundy to Dabo Swinney. But I guess the bigger question for Dabo, and you're right, I think he's safe right now, is if he were to have that Mike Norvell type of year, which would be 2-10 and would be disastrous, at what point, because he was so late to take in transfer talent, do you think that even though he started to take it in this year, that might be the main reason where if they do make a change down the road, it's because of that? He didn't change maybe his way of thinking about building up the program?
Yeah, well, whether that's the reason they're where they are right now, I guarantee he's looking in the mirror and say, "I'm gonna go get me some players." He's a smart guy, and he's gonna look in that mirror and say, "You know what? I'm not smarter than everybody else. We're gonna go get the best players and put that money." Now they have jumped into the portal a little bit, but they need to go whole hog in what they need to do. And I think you'll see that. I know this. I know Dabo's not afraid to fire coaches. The hardest thing I've ever had to do as a head coach is to fire an assistant. Call him into my office. I brought you here, but I made a mistake. Now you're gone. He's shown he knows how to do that. He's probably and he will be willing to say, you know what, we're going to have to go out there just like Georgia's done, Alabama's done. When we need somebody or we need 2 or 3, we got to go get them out of the portal, get them with NILs, and keep the ones here with money that we can.
We'll see if Dabo could right the ship. Right now, they have 2 conference losses to Georgia Tech and Syracuse. They're going to have to win out the rest of the way just to potentially have a shot at an ACC championship and a deep shot to make the college football playoff. The other coaching decision happens to be in North Carolina, I guess. When you lose and move on from Mac Brown, an older coach, to get an older coach in Bill Belichick, you think North Carolina is second-guessing at this point?
Oh, they're second guessing. They're not going to admit it, but they are second guessing. I think to get a Belichick who's coaching with the same mindset that he's always had, if they have that, they've got a winner. But I'm not so sure that he went into North Carolina with the same mindset.
When Coach and I return, we'll dive into Week 5 within the ACC. Coming right back. Diving into week number 5 within the ACC, Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden breaking down all the big games. We'll start on Friday night. Battle of an unbeaten in Florida State on the road, coach, in Charlottesville. Never been easy for the Seminoles. They take on a 3-1 Virginia team. Florida State is 14-4 in the series. Last time they played, though, was back in 2019. Virginia got the win. But this team with Thomas Castellanos at the helm is hitting on all cylinders. I think Florida State could potentially win and cover this line easy Friday night.
Well, that first thing I say is what's going on here? A 6.5 spread. You got a top 10 team. Now I think this is the best team that the head coach has gotten at Virginia. This is the best they've been since he's been there, and so I think that's that. But I think Florida State, I expect a little bigger line. That's kind of unusual that they don't have a bigger spread than that. That people right now are expecting it to be a closer game. But the way Florida State's been playing, they just seem to have separated themselves from Virginia. This is going to be interesting. It's got me interested because of that. Tony Elliott has got his best football team at Virginia right now. But, this is a different team he's playing.
Absolutely. Chandler Morris, the starting quarterback, has played very well, completing well over 60% of his passes. Virginia beat up Stanford 48-20. That was a game where Stanford was coming off a win over Boston College. I think when you look at the total as well, 57.5. This is a Virginia offense, coach, that's averaging 45 points per game. Chandler Morris has thrown for 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. Thomas Castellanos can run it. He can throw it. If Florida State's going to win this game, from a defensive perspective, can they shut down Virginia through the air, you believe, first, and then make them run it? Or do they have to shut down the rushing attack first to have a shot?
No, I don't think without a throwing attack, on just running, you can't beat Florida State. But I'm going to say this: if the Alabama game was a bit of Alabama played terrible, we haven't seen a lot of Florida State since then. East Texas, A&M, and then after that, Kent State, and that was they're not real solid. I haven't seen enough about Florida State against good people since the Alabama game. And they dominated these two teams. I mean, these two teams, they were so much better than that I don't have a good feel for exactly was the Alabama game everything we thought it was, because you got to see a few more teams against power four teams. Now, I do think Virginia will give them a good test. I think the line suggests that. And I don't think so much that Virginia can hang that close, but I think this will be a good next step for Florida State. And one, Virginia will have to throw the football to have a chance to win this game, and they're pretty good at it. I thought that they threw the ball very well against Stanford, but Stanford ain't Florida State on defense. I'm gonna tell you.
I'll say this: if Virginia is going to cover this line, they're going to have to shut down Florida State's rushing attack. Now, I know that they played Kent State. Florida State comes into this game, Coach, averaging 363 rushing yards per game. They rushed for 240 on Alabama. They put up over 400 yards last week against Kent State, over 8 yards per carry. This is a dominant offensive line, and if they get that type of productivity the rest of the way, even if they knock off Virginia, that game looming with Miami is a huge game for the Seminoles to be back for national prominence.
Yeah, and I'll say a couple things. One, I watched again the Virginia-Stanford game. I watched the highlights again today closely. The talent level that Virginia's going to put off the field is not the same as the talent level Florida State's going to have on offense against them. But I will say this: all that yards against Kent State was 0-12 last year. I think they may have one win this year. East Texas, and I'm not sure if that. I think that used to be Texas Commerce. I don't think that's even the name they used to go by. Those are not very good teams, even when you talk about G6 or G5 programs. So I do think, though, that Florida State will offensively be so talented that Virginia will not have an answer to stopping their running game.
They won 66-10. They rushed it 54 times for 498 yards, averaged 9.2 yards per carry, Coach, and had 8 rushing touchdowns in the game. I mean, that's unbelievable when you think about it. Coach and I will be back later in the week with all of the big games within the ACC. We're just getting started. There's a lot of news and notes to get to. Can Miami in a couple of weeks stay unbeaten? Can Florida State make some noise against Virginia? And can some of the other teams like Georgia Tech or Louisville this coming weekend step up and make a statement? We'll break it down later in the week right here on the Bowden Blitz. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. Have a great day, everyone.